One of the questions I get asked the most from young shred-eye knights across the globe is which is the more better shredder, economy or alternate picking? Personally, I'd just tell you to practice this lick and decide for yourself if you're going to be an alternate picking acrobat or an economy picking pro. Hey there kids, it's your good buddy, Uncle Ben. Pepsi versus Coke, Beatles versus Stones, Fender versus Gibson. It seems like there's always two choices for just about everything out there. And in the world of shred guitar, it usually comes down to alternate versus economy picking. Which one is the most bestest? Personally, I think both approaches are equally valid. Some of my favorite players are alternate picking geniuses like John Petrucci or Paul Gilbert. And then some of the most unique players out there are guys that rely on economy picking, like Frank Gambale, Eric Johnson, and so many others. It's really all about finding which technique works better for you and pursuing it to its fullest, which is why I came up with this lick today that I'm going to show you guys to help you figure out which one is better suited for your personal playing style. I'm going to show you guys how to play the lick with both different picking styles, then we're going to spend some time talking about the pros and cons of each. I'm also going to show you guys the best way to practice it to get the most out of it. But before we do that, I'm going to remind you that this video is brought to you guys by everybody who supports my channel over on my Patreon page, patreon.com/Ben Eller Guitars. Sign up today, you're going to get access to tons of bonus goodies like extra lessons, downloadable tabs, and so much more. This week, everybody who supports my channel is going to get access to a downloadable tab and guitar profile that I made to go along with this video, as well as the practice tracks that I'm putting up at a variety of different tempos, and the MIDI file. That way you can build your own perfect practice session. I'm also putting up a bonus video this week showing you guys how I choose between alternate and economy picking and my own playing preferences. So don't delay, sign up today. Gear-wise for today's video, I'm playing my amazing Jackson SL3 American Soloist, and I'm playing through my Synergy rig. I've got the Steve Vai module in there right now, and it sounds delightful. Yeah, let's hear that lick again with some alternate picking at stepdad speed. And here it is again with the economy picking. So first things first, as I post this video, I am currently aboard the Good Boat Shipwrecked, playing my big ol' heavy metal rock cruise gig like I usually do every year. It's a blast. Which also means that my wife is running my Instagram page right now, which means hilarity is absolutely ensuing. So be sure to give me a follow over there at Ben Eller Guitars. You probably want to see whatever shenanigans she is up to. Okay, so first things first, let's talk about this lick. It's in the key of B minor, show you how to play it, and then we'll talk about the picking approaches. So it's two different licks just looped in a row. Here's the first one. So that's the first phrase built around the B minor scale fragment right there. Little crazy train action going on, not too hard to play. Now after that we're going to go to this phrase on the A and D strings. That one's kind of rooted around that F sharp Phrygian sound. And you just play each of those licks 4 times in a row. That way you can really soak up the picking. Now, the first way to approach this is with alternate picking. And this is the easiest way, I think, to understand playing a lick like this. Down, up, repeat. That's it. So you play the entire thing starting with a downstroke. Your next stroke's going to be an up. Guess what happens after that? A down, and an up, and so on. Same thing when we get to the second part of the lick. So just down, up, repeat. Pretty easy to understand on a fundamental level. Now, because of the phraseology of this lick, there's an interesting thing that happens when you alternate pick it. Whenever we're alternate picking, the biggest challenge is the string crossing. We'll get into that as we go along here. But whenever we change strings, it's either going to be an outside string change like this, or an inside string change like this, where you're in between a pair of strings. With this particular lick, it cycles. The first change in the first lick is an outside change, whereas the second one is an inside change. So it goes from out to in. Out, in. Reminds me of my honeymoon. Now with the second lick, it's going to be the opposite of that. It's going to go from an inside change to an outside change. So this is a pretty cool thing to practice with your alternate picking if you want to try cycling your outs to your ins and your ins to your outs. It's kind of a challenge either way. Now the economy picking approach is going to be, I don't know, a little bit more complicated for some of us, but will probably come more naturally to some of you guys as well. Again, this is the cool thing about this lick. You get to try them both and see which one works best for you. So with economy picking, the idea is we're trying to just keep the pick going in the direction that it's already going. That is economy picking in a nutshell right there. So we could go down, down, up, down, up. Down, down, up, down, up. Now at that point, it's time to go back to the D string. So why would I go up and over the D to do a downstroke, up, down, when I could just smack it with an up on the way back? Down, down, up, down, up, up. Down, down, up, down, up, up, down, up. Down, down, up, down, up, up, down, up. Now the last repetition of this, going into the second lick, is where things get, I think, a little bit more confusing. Check this out. Did you see that move right there? We did our usual change of down, down, up, down, up, up, down, up. But after we did that last upstroke, we're going to the A string anyway. So let's just carry through with another upstroke. This is tricky because it's taking it from being like a repeatable cycle, down, down, up, down, up, up, down, up, to something that has to suddenly change at the last minute. Up, up, down. That's kind of confusing. But either way, whenever you play this first cycle of this lick, it's going to start on up, down, and then we're going to the D string here anyway, so just push that down stroke through to the next note. Up, down, down, up, down, up, down. It's kind of like trying to memorize all the Mortal Kombat finishing moves. Is this one up, up, down, or is it down, up, down, up? Like, they get kind of complicated to memorize like that. But thankfully, it's not really about memorizing the ups or downs after long with it. Now here's the thing. The last note is a downstroke, right? And at this point, it's time to start the entire thing over, which means we're going to right here. So that means we're going to go downstroke to downstroke to downstroke, because it's the last note of that measure, the first note of the next measure, the second note of the next measure, 3 downstrokes in a row. I'm just going to play the last measure of the second lick going into the first measure of the first lick. Should look and sound kind of like this. So now that you got that down, let's talk about the pros and cons of both picking styles. Now with alternate, definitely the biggest pro that it has going for it is that the picking pattern is easy as hell to remember. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. That's it. Down, up, repeat till you're blue in the face. And that goes the same with both licks. There's only two things to remember: down, up, keep going. So it's not going to overload your mental processor trying to keep up with what you should be doing. If you just did a down, do an up. That's kind of it. Another great thing about this is that it has a great groove to it. Our downstrokes are naturally heavier than our upstrokes. The down beats, at least in rock music, are always the ones that are going to be heavier, bigger, more emphasized. Our upstrokes are lighter. The upbeats are usually lighter. It kind of puts the rhythmic emphasis right where you want it to be naturally, with those heavy downstrokes landing on the beat and the lighter sounding upstrokes filling in between the beats. It's really easy to stay locked in with the drummer and stay super groovy when you're alternate picking nonstop. Now let's talk about the cons. Easily the most difficult thing about alternate picking is all the string crossing. Getting over this string and under this string. Getting away from this string and up under this string whenever you're doing those inside changes. We talked about the insides and outsides earlier. The string crossing is the hardest thing about alternate picking, and a lot of us spend like our entire lives trying to figure out how to do it more better, and it can be really tricky. Now here's what I'm talking about. Whenever you're doing these string crossing, you've really got to focus on leaving the string on what I call a launcher pick stroke. A launcher isn't just a pick stroke that goes through the string, it's a pick stroke that is big enough to where it takes you above or below the next string that you're heading to after that. A really excellent way to approach this is to think about it this way. Let's say I was playing a lick where I played 100 notes on this string, and then I changed to this guy, right? I could play the first 99 notes on that string with the smallest, tightest pick stroke possible, but on note number 100, I'm going to make a bigger pick stroke that'll get me up and under this string. That could be a downstroke like I just demonstrated, or it could be an upstroke that flings out of the strings. That way I can crash down on that guy. But the first 99, I can do whatever I want. But when it's time to move strings, I gotta launch. Conveniently enough with this lick, the way that it's phrased, you're gonna be starting every group of 16th notes on a launcher. So it's like launch, up, down, up, launch, up, down, up. So you can really emphasize that downstroke and get out and away from the strings whenever you practice that first section. And then with the second section, you can see with that upstroke, I've really got to get that away from the A string. That way I can crash down here onto the D for the next section. And then that upstroke right there that leaves the D is a perfect time to really launch up and out. That way I can get above the A string and crash down with a downstroke. So by far the biggest con of alternate picking is the string crossing, but as long as you have that launcher mindset going, it shouldn't be too bad for you. Now let's talk about economy picking. So with this particular lick, the biggest pro that economy has going for it is that there are no string crosses whatsoever. Instead of having to launch the pick out of the strings to get from place to place, you can play this entire lick with economy picking and just leave the pick buried in the strings, like this right here. You can see how instead of taking it out and putting it back in over and over, this time with the economy picking, we can just stick it in and leave it. Just the way your mother likes it. Whenever you practice this with the economy picking, be sure to not make big individual pick strokes that leave the playing field of the strings, like this. Even if you're doing the correct picking and doing the down, down, up, up thing, you're not getting any of the benefits if you're not leaving that pick just parked in between the strings. That's how you're going to get the smoothest feel for your economy picking. And speaking of pick parking, that's something I want you to do too. Whenever you're doing those consecutive down or up strokes, I want you to use the next string as kind of the stopping block for your pick, like this. See right there on the first two notes, instead of just taking that downstroke and leaving it in between the two strings, I'm going all the way through and resting on the G to stop the motion of the pick. And then I just wait there until it's time to strike the note. Same with that up to up. You can see I rested that against the D string until it was time to push through and play the note. It's really going to help you gain a lot of control with your economy picking, because sometimes with economy it can be so fluid that the speed kind of gets away from you. It does have a really smooth sound to it. That's one of the biggest pros about economy picking. When you think about players like Frank Gambale is the first one that comes to mind. You know, he's got a really smooth, fluid sound to his picking. Compare that to the Paul Gilbert kind of alternate picking sound. Frank Gambale's stuff is a lot more fluid, almost, I guess you could say in a sense, less dynamic. Maybe more like a Moog synthesizer or something, where the notes just ring out kind of exactly the same as they go. Some people want that effect. They want that extremely fluid, smooth, consistent sound, and economy picking is excellent for that. But as for the cons, there are a few, because sometimes you want that Paul Gilbert chugga 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 kind of sound, right? I know I do anyway. So with economy picking, it can be really hard to get that same rhythmic emphasis whenever oftentimes downstrokes aren't landing on downbeats and upstrokes aren't landing on upbeats. You really have to watch those dynamics like a hawk. So with this lick right here, you can practice it in such a way to really emphasize the first note of every group, whether it be a downstroke or an upstroke. You got to pay really close attention to it. And this is where using those practice tracks or the guitar profile that I'm putting up on Patreon will really come in handy. It'll help you keep locked into the groove and make sure that your economy picking isn't getting undynamic or ending up with accent, downstrokes in the wrong places in the beat. That can make your flow sound really choppy and not good. And the other downside of economy picking is not everything can be economy picked. You're just going to have to fall back on alternate picking at some point, unless you build your entire vocabulary around lines that exclusively use economy picking, which is possible, but not seen all that often, and definitely not something that you'll be able to do if you're playing other people's stuff. So let's take for example a classic Shredder's Delight, the Paul Gilbert lick, right? Now, if you're an economy picking guy, you might look at the first four notes of that and think, yeah, I can totally do that. Down, up, down, down. Heck, you could probably do that faster than a lot of guys can alternate pick it. But what happens after that? Down, up, down, down. Well, you're not going to the B string, you're going back to the D string. So it's got to be a tricky upstroke. That, by default, is now alternate picking. Downstroke here to upstroke here. That's alternate. So down, up, down, down. Up, down, up. Now you can't do your economy picking anymore. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. Now we're just going back to straight up alternate picking because you can't economy pick your way through everything. So eventually you are going to have some backbone of alternate picking chops if you go the route of economy picking. They all do. I mean, Eric Johnson has immense alternate picking chops for certain things. Obviously, Yngwie does as well. But whenever they can economy pick with consecutive downstrokes, in the case of both of those guys, they do. So it's kind of interesting. You have to build up a unique vocabulary, but maybe that's a good thing. Maybe the fact that you can't play all those alternate picked lines that you hear Petrucci and Steve Morse and all these guys do, maybe that's a good thing. They've already played them. Maybe you can come up with some new stuff using your economy picking vocabulary simply because you can't use your technique to play other guys' stuff. So maybe it is what we would call a beneficial limitation. Your imagination and your mitts will decide. So there you go, guys, a journey through the two schools of shredding thought, alternate picking and economy picking. Personally, I do a little bit of both. I'm going to talk about why more in that Patreon exclusive video, which you can get if you sign up over there, even for just $1 a month. It's also going to be how you get the guitar profile, the tabs, the practice tracks, all the goodies, and all the extra bonus stuff. There's like hundreds of posts on there now, so sign up today, get access to the good stuff. Thank you guys so much for liking the video. Be sure to subscribe to my channel and ring the bell for notifications every time I upload a new slice of fried gold, and be sure to tell your mom I said hi. Well guys, it's been fun as always, but as for myself, it's time to get off of here and go review some tunes from my time at sea aboard Shipwrecked 2024. As for you guys, I recommend you get away from the computer machine, go play some guitar. Less clicking, more picking.